Welcome to Muscles and Malarkey, a podcast about all things strength, fitness, and fun. I'm your host, Mary. On today's episode, we have our first recurring guest. Eric, I'm so excited to have you on.
Hey, Mary, how's it going? Thanks for having me back.
For those of you who may not know, Eric actually did an awesome interview, and it's episode 23. So, Eric, catch us up since we last heard from you. How's training going? What have you been up to?
Training's good. I stepped away from Olympic lifting, actually. I hired a powerlifting and bodybuilding coach. I did weightlifting for about 15 years, competed for about 10 of them. I joke around, I'm just trying to stay stronger than my students. So I'm aesthetics as well as just trying to add tissue to the body. So I train powerlifting and some bodybuilding accessories. That's kind of my main focus, just hypertrophy.
Well, I mean, respectfully, I have seen that physique and oh boy, ladies, are you single?
I'm happily taken, actually. Yeah.
Oh, darn it. Ladies, no, never mind. Don't slide into those DMs. Respectfully, you are my best friend's brother, but from a fellow gym goer, like, you really do have a very insane physique. You have built so much muscle. I didn't realize it's been almost 15 years that you were weightlifting.
For anyone who doesn't know, my sister and Mary have been friends since they were like 3, I think, or 4, something like that. And ironically, actually, one of my events in track and field in 8th grade and then through high school was the discus, which is a strength and power event, which I did not have either. In high school, I was very, very skinny and very lanky. I was more suited for the long jump or like maybe the 100, which I wasn't very good at either, but I digress. So thank you for those compliments.
Absolutely. Hey, you got to give credit where credit's due. I firmly believe that. So you shifted gears a little bit. Are you enjoying this transition into like a different type of training?
I am. One of my primary goals is to squat 500 pounds, which is kind of the infinity stone amongst really serious strength and power athletes. I've successfully squatted 460 or 465, I forget which. To be conservative, let's call it 460 for a heavy single. But going back to actually my previous episode on your podcast when we were talking about the nervous system and my stroke, I'm still trying to figure out my nervous system issues. I can do volume really successfully and it feels very easy. But as soon as I get into my higher threshold strength work, it feels very difficult, specifically with, squatting. I really can't tolerate really, really heavy lifting multiple times a week. The way my coach programs my lifting, we go through what's called daily undulating periodization, where it's a volume day on day 1, a moderate strength workout on day 2, and then max strength on day 3.
I love that goal. And I'm looking forward to seeing you hit it because I know you will. You brought up your history with the stroke that you had and having to adjust your training in a way that doesn't overwhelm your central nervous system, it sounds like. What are some common misconceptions that you've seen in the lifting world when people talk about CNS or their central nervous system?
Yeah, I think that people, as soon as they do just like one hard workout, they say, oh my God, my nervous system is fried. And I don't think that people understand how a muscle contraction works or occurs. The nervous system, physiologically speaking, is your brain and your spinal cord. And your spinal cord has a bunch of branches that will innervate muscles. The entire nervous system is just one big conductive signal that gives your house light and electricity. And so if that's disrupted, it becomes dim. Every time you try to contract a muscle, it's like trying to hit a switch. If you're constantly lifting heavily, this is where I see a lot of beginners kind of run into trouble. They're always trying to, max out their bench or their squat or constantly go heavy. They just accumulate so much fatigue, and this can disrupt their brain's ability to send signals to their muscles to contract in a forceful manner. I'm hoping this is making sense to any of the listeners. Say on Monday, let's just say for easy math, 100 pounds you could lift for 5 sets of 5. But a lot of beginners will go in maybe on Wednesday or Thursday and they'll try to lift that again. And it's like, unless you're accustomed to lifting that much volume and that much weight, repeatedly within a 1 week cycle, not only are your muscles going to be so essentially tired, but your nervous system, your body's ability to, again, flip that switch, your switch is going to be dim. It comes down to really what people can recover from. That's where steroids come in terms of aiding in recovery, so you can keep that light switch nice and bright on your second day of squatting 100 pounds for 5 sets of 5.
I just had a thought, and I feel like this would be very good. Imagine I'm a gym bro. All right. Hey, man. So I want to lift 455 pounds for my deadlift. And last week, I PR'd my deadlift with 445 pounds. And then today, I just tried to PR my deadlift again. And I couldn't lift that same amount of weight. Like, I've been maxing out. I heard from Dr. Mike Israetel that you can max out your deadlift every 9 days. So, like, why did that happen? Why didn't I lift the same amount of weight?
Well, buddy, bud, you can't just continuously give yourself the same dose and expect a different result, right? So instead of just always trying to lift heavy singles and doubles, it's like, well, let's take a step back. Now that we have that 1 repetition maximum, let's work on volume. Let's hypertrophy those muscles. Like, hey, why are you just trying to do heavy singles? Have you tried doing lighter weight for higher reps?
That's a question I've heard a lot in the past, decade of being in the gym. I mean, I've had other gym bros come up to me and they're like, why are you following a program? You could lift so much heavier than that. Like, why did you stop at, 3 reps? You could have done 5. And little do they know it's an RPE 8 set of 3.
Yeah, I mean, evidence is pretty clear in terms of the literature guiding us towards hypertrophy as such an important physiological parameter when it comes to just stronger, more resilient muscles. Just basic physics, and power equals force times velocity. A larger muscle will be a more forceful muscle. And so if you want to lift heavier weight for smaller reps, right? So your singles, doubles, triples, you need to do your volume work. You need to do your 10s and 12s and 6s and all those fun larger numbers. Yep.
If you want to be stronger, you have to build your muscle size as
Mm-hmm.
well as its power ability. You don't get stronger necessarily when you're doing the singles, the doubles, the triples. I mean, like, in a way, yes, but stay with me here. You get stronger with those sets of 10, 8, 6 and increasing the weight there. If you can do 225 pounds for a set of 6 at the beginning of the year, and then you retest that and you can do 225 pounds for 8 reps or 9 reps, you've gotten stronger. That will directly translate over into your 1 rep max.
Absolutely. Right. So someone didn't do well at their meet, and actually, so to this point, they peaked too early.
People who are in prep for something like strongman, weightlifting, powerlifting, can you explain that?
A proper taper and peak is going to involve enough volume and intensity to allow your body to recover. And then by the time your body's recovered, your body is now adapted to all the stimuli that you've given it, through all those training weeks. If you're not doing a proper taper and peak and you're too fatigued, it's probably because you did too much volume, you didn't lower it enough, or you tested too often, or you did too much volume and intensity leading up to it. They tested like 2 weeks out, and then they tested again on Wednesday. So they're accruing all this fatigue by going heavy on their squat, bench, and deadlift all over again. And then they were going to compete on a Saturday or a Sunday. And it's like, no wonder you didn't get better. They actually, I think, either bombed out or did worse in their total.
If you're feeling that beat down, like, in some aspects, of course, it's normal that you're going to feel beat up a little bit after going through, let's say, an 8-week prep for a meet. 2 weeks out, you're going to be a little tired. You take that 2 weeks to recover. So game day, you're ready to go. If you are feeling even worse, or if you're feeling like you can't perform, or you go and you try and do your last heavy single and you don't quite get it, take a step back, look at all the factors. Biggest one being, how is your recovery? Not even from a nervous system standpoint, but like, did you have enough water? Have you eaten enough food? How has your sleep schedule been? Have you been doing your mobility? Have you been stiff as a board and not walking or moving at all? Have you gotten like 200 steps the past like 3 days?
How's your daily stress too? Yeah.
Because if you have a pretty stressful work environment or a very labor intensive job, that also factors in to how you're going to perform. Control the controllables, right? That's all we can do.
That's what my weightlifting coach used to say all the time. Well said. Control the controllables.
You're talking about volume and frequency and intensity, and it's just clicking for me now that in a way, we do utilize that in the hospital. We are essentially promoting a high frequency rate for exercise because we have mobility specialists that they go in and they walk a patient or transfer a patient. I am taking our basic movement patterns, a squat, a hinge, a lunge, even just to be able to roll out of bed, push yourself up into sitting, and then move from sitting into standing. It's essentially just accumulating those reps throughout the day.
Absolutely. Right. So exercise science is a, conglomerate, if you will. Muscles and Malarkey is occupational therapy. I consider myself a strength conditioning coach, kinesiologist, and then there's the physical therapist, and then there's athletic trainers, there's assistants. So there's so many different avenues, but we all are under the same umbrella. We all work together. The list of faculties goes on, but
Thank you though for saying that, because I do think that people forget that your occupations are your activities of daily living. Like, and OT has such a broad umbrella as well, where yes, something like the gym is very biomechanical, and some might say that isn't really OT related. But if going to the gym and exercising is a way for you, like that's a hobby for you, that's a leisure activity for you, then yeah, absolutely, OT has a role in that. We all have a different viewpoint, right? Like the way that you approach things versus how I'm going to approach things versus a PT, an AT, we all have a very we see the whole picture, but we just have like a slightly different perspective on it. What would your advice be for approaching recovery from a nervous system standpoint? What are some things if someone's feeling like totally burnt out, like true just fatigue? What are some things that you would recommend, or some advice that you'd give?
Sleep is probably number one, and it sounds really obvious. I've been doing a lot of reading on sleeping, and for anyone who doesn't know, I have sleep apnea. So like my sleep in the last 5 years and my ability to recover has dramatically, night and day. Light switch. My light switch was always dim because my ability to recover just via something as simple as sleep was so poor because of my inability to sleep, right? So making sure that you are sleeping enough and allow your nervous system to recover.
I think we have a really good episode here. There's some really important points that you drove home, and I hope that the listeners really got a good combination of education in this, but also like relatability to and things that they can apply to their own training.
Yeah, I hope I kept everyone's interest and, didn't go on too many, random nerdy side quests.
There is one question that I didn't ask you before that I want to ask you now.
Okay.
Looking back in your fitness journey, have you ever had a moment in which you were like, what the fuck was I thinking?
Right before I went to get my master's, my roommate at the time, we did Smoloff, the full Smoloff. Smoloff is a insane Soviet strength program. You can run it for deadlifts, squat, bench. It's 16 weeks long or 18 weeks long. I think it's 16. It's extremely, extremely challenging. Most people cannot complete it. I did not complete it. Most people who do are either built different or they're on drugs or both. I know of one person who completed it, was my first weightlifting coach. I don't like him as a person, but he is built different. So I'll give credit when credit's due. And I couldn't walk downstairs for a couple of weeks. I think I got to like week 9 or 10 out of 16. And I had patellofemoral syndrome. So what that means, this piece of fascia was so inflamed that I couldn't flex or extend my knee. I felt like I was arthritic and I was only 25 at the time, or 24. And actually my friend at the time, so I made it 8 to 10 weeks. Let's call it 8 to be conservative. He only made it 6. And he's going back to recovery. He ate like crap, never slept well. And he gave himself walking pneumonia. He was so under recovered from doing small off. For anyone who's never done this program, there's obviously 7 days in a week. You have to squat or bench, whatever exercise you choose. You have to do it for 4 out of 7. So inevitably you have to do it 2 days in a row. Please don't do it. It's horrible. You're probably not going to make it unless you're on drugs, or if you hate yourself enough. It's really, really awful. Probably my biggest regret. Maybe not a regret. I learned a lot about myself. I was like, okay, like, using myself as an experiment, as I do still to this day. But yeah, that's a lot of volume.
I'm just laughing so hard over here. I am just like picturing this and I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe you made it like 10 weeks. That's crazy.
Well, and so you can keep this in or out. You met Tina. That's who I was with at the time. I remember going to visit her and I couldn't get out of my truck. And she was like, "What's wrong with you?" And I was like, "Oh my God, my knees."
Obviously hindsight's 2020 and you look back and there's things where you're like, oh my God, why the hell did I do that? I think that's probably like one of the best answers I've gotten from that question, by the way. Thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. This was a really fun time.
Thanks for having me again, Mary.
If you enjoyed this episode, please follow, share, rate, and review. It helps the podcast grow and reach more people. Do you have any questions or suggestions? Email me at musclesandmalarkey@gmail.com or find me on Instagram at musclesandmalarkey. Yeehaw and yee-claw, everybody.